Hello everyone, and I don't have a title for this, so let's just call it particle effects in Houdini. Someone on Instagram asked me to recreate a specific effect, so this is the effect that they wanted. So if you see it from the beginning, you get like these particles sort of shooting out from the center. Yeah, there you go. So that's okay. So I didn't do this because this is like fairly complex, but this is what we will end up recreating in this lesson, which is just having like these particles sort of flow along a torus. And like if you look at it from a distance, it looks like an iris. Okay, so yeah, so this is what we'll recreate. Okay, so to start with, I have two things. I have like my base circle, okay, and then I have a torus. Okay, so I copied that much and I made a new file, okay, or I made a new geometry folder. Okay, so what I have is I have my circle, and this is a closed circle, so I just want it open because we wanted to emit from the edges and not from the geometry itself. And then I have a sweep. So the only thing I did with the sweep was that the circle that I'm using for sweep, I pushed it, like it's not at the center, like it is here, like it starts at 0 at one point over there. So the advantage is that the sweep sort of happens from there, like the circle is not in the middle, the circle is inside over here, so that when we attach the particles, it will be easier to make it work. Like you can just simply move the circle. Like if I'll just show you what's happening. Like if I delete this and I keep it 0, see, so the problem that happens here is that my circle is here in the middle. Okay, so what we want is, we want it to be like there. So the simplest thing is, you notice that the radius should be what the center value should be. So you can right click here, copy parameter, paste relative reference. That's pretty much it. So now if I make it bigger or smaller, it sort of stays over there. Okay, now what we want to do is two things, right? So one is I want the particle sort of move outwards and upwards, and then I want to give it some noise. So the noise will do it at particle level, but for the particles to move outwards, we'll generate a force here. Okay, so just take a meta ball and make it bigger than the torus, and then take a force node. Let's just keep it here, and in the force I'll keep it radial and -1. So this will push it outwards, and now we can start creating our particle network. So just take a pop network. So carve goes into the first one, the sweep goes into the second, and this comes into the third. Okay, now we want to do a few things. So first of all, this is fine. Let's just set this to impulse activation. We'll keep it to around 150. And I'll get the life expectancy down to 1.5 with a little bit of variation. Okay, so the first thing is, let's bring in the metaball force. So I'll just take a pop metaball force. And this will be third context, because the first is the curve, the second is the torus. So the third is our metaball. Okay, and if I press play, it should work. So this is fine. The next thing is, let's also give it some drag. So we'll take a pop drag. I'll make it around 2 or 2.5. So yeah, this is good. Now this is done. Now what I want to do is, I want to apply noise to this, or like turbulence to this. But I want to multiply the turbulence with the age of the particle, or like the normalized age of the particle, so that I can control for how long the noise should affect. The other thing I also want to do is, I want access to the normalized age outside the particle network, because the problem that I noticed was that the normalized age value or the normalized attribute exists only at like dynamics level. When you come into SOP level, you won't have access to it. Like if I look here, like let's say if I apply like a color. So if I take a pop color, and you'll notice that there is a value here which says n age. Okay, so if I play this, but if you come up here and we look at the attributes, you don't get n age. Like you get age and you get life, but you don't get n age. So the simplest way to do normalized age is you divide the age by life. Okay, so we can do that here itself, like afterwards. So I'll just delete this just to show you what needs to be done. Is I can take a wrangle node, at geometry level, we'll create something called f at, let's call it new age, and we'll do at age divided by at life. Because the advantage of doing this at SOP level is that if you do it at particle level, like let's say if you're doing color and stuff at particle level, then every time you make a change, you have to resimulate. Okay, so if you do it at SOP level, then you don't need to resimulate, especially if you do it after the particle network. So now if I take a color node and I plug this in and I say ramp from attribute, and this is new age, and there you go. See, you get the same effect, but now the advantage is that, like, any changes I make are live over here, and I don't need to go and resimulate the particles. Anyway, so we don't need this right now, but just to sort of mention it. So as I said, what we want is I want to apply some noise to this, but I want to multiply it with the age of the particle. So take a pop force, and within the pop force, you will get like noise over here. So I can just increase amplitude and you'll get this. So I want to do a few things. Okay, let's just do one thing. Let's turn off the guide. Okay, this is kind of irritating. And let's also just increase the sub steps a little. I think 3 should be fine. It'll just be a little smoother. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I don't want it to swirl around. Okay, like I wanted to get like a fixed pattern. So take the pulse length, okay, and get it down like really small. So what this will do is, see, so now it's almost like a fixed pattern. Okay. Or you can actually get it to 0. See, so this is like, now it's a fixed pattern. Okay. So if you wanted to animate, like don't use the pulse length, you can just use an offset value. So what I can do is I can come into the X offset, do at time, let's say divided by 4. So it will just move around, but very slowly. See, so it's mostly fixed and then it moves around, like animates very slowly. Let's make it like 6. So it's very, very slow. Yeah. Anyway, so this is fine. Now what I said is, as I said, like what I want to do is we want to multiply the amplitude with the age. So turn on use vex expression, and I can come here and you'll get something called amplitude by normalized age. Okay, which is fine. But what I want is I want to use like a ramp to control it. Okay, so let's just delete this and I'll create a float value. So we'll call it float multiplier. Okay, and let's generate a ramp. So we'll do ch ramp and I'll call it age curve, and we'll do at an age. Okay, and here I'll multiply it with this value, so mult, and you can click here, so it will generate the ramp for you. Okay, now if I press play, you won't see anything happening right now, but let's make it like this. Okay, and if you press play now, see, only at the end it starts to get the noise, which is great. That is what we wanted. Like if I keep it like maybe a little bit here, see, so it's flat and then it starts getting noisy, which is great, which is what we want. So I can take the amplitude maybe a little bit higher, and then we can also get the swirl size a little low, so you'll get like more. Yeah, now this isn't what we want. We want it reversed. Okay, so just flip this. So we'll get noise in the beginning, and see, then it gets straight. So like if I take this here, see, so after that, it doesn't, like if I keep it all the way till there, see, if I just keep it like this, see, it's sort of like it's swirling all over. And then if I, like stop it, see, so you get noise in the beginning and then nothing after that. Okay, now comes the other part, which is we need to connect it, or we need to have it move along a geometry. So this has to be done through a wrangle node, because there is a function called minpos, which is minpos. Okay, and minpos is sort of like a race op. It just sticks everything to geometry. So we want to basically adjust the position. So the thing you need to do is you need to come into input and you need to define what external geometry is going to be used to connect. Okay, so we'll take input 1 and I'll set it to second context geometry, which is the torus. And so what we do here is we do at p is equal to minpos, and it only needs two things. It needs the geometry number, which in our case will be 0, okay, because that's the 0 input. And what do you want to what do you want from there? So we want at p, okay, and that's it. So if I press play, and if you've done everything right, it should just stick to the geometry. There you go. So pretty straightforward. Okay, now I can like adjust it a bit more. So you can probably like just bring this in. All right, so we're good. Like this is fine. Now what we need is, I don't want it to emit continuously, right? We want like a pulse. So what I'll do is I'm going to animate the impulse activation. So we'll take you can write a simple formula. Like we can use a modulus and then, you know, just use that. So we can do a modulus of 30. So it's like, we can basically say like every time it reaches like a multiple of 30, it will activate. Okay, so the way you do it is, I'm terrible at explaining this. So we'll just do $ff, percentage sign is for modulus, and we'll do 30, and we'll do equal to 1. So what this does is that every time it is at 30, or see, you'll get this. So this is perfect. Now, this is the effect that we want, but this in and of itself looks crap. Okay, so let's actually make it look better, because what we need now is we want to generate trails behind it. So the way we do it is we can come here, like we have our color, which should look interesting now. See, so like we can fade it out as well. Like I can just take this, keep it here, and then fade it off to black like that. And see, so you can like, you know, it fades out. Okay, so how do we generate trails? So generating trails is pretty simple. Just take a trail node and yeah, just plug this in over here. And we need to define, so let's give it around 45, and that's pretty much it. So if you press play, you'll see like it. So see, so what we're getting is we get like noise towards the beginning, and then it just remains as straight lines, which is great. So like you get like a little bit of swirly movement in the beginning, which is nice. Okay, now I need this to convert to lines. So what we do is take an add node and do delete. No, don't turn that on because we don't have any geometry. Come to by group and do by attribute and type ID. So it just connects all the IDs together. So each original particle has an ID. So all the trails being generated have the same ID. So it just connects, you know, them all together. Okay. And there you go. So that's what we get. So now we just want to color these as well. So take a resample node and let's like turn that off. We don't want to generate any points or anything. Just turn on the curve view attribute. And then I can just take a color node and we can color it based on the curve view. So just do like ram from attribute, set this to curve view, and what I want is, let's say this is fine. Let's keep this to maybe like a blue, and let's keep that to, no, flip it. Yeah, okay. So we'll get this, see. Maybe here I can keep it to black as well. So it sort of fades off to black. Yeah, that's not bad. Maybe we can add a little more noise to this. So let's just come back into the particle network. We'll come into the pop force and keep it like there. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is fine. See, so you get like a little bit of, you know, that swirl happening. Okay, so this is good. Now let's also take the particles. Those have color, which is great. Except let's change this to like a pink as well. And we can try to merge these together. And we get this. Now you can give it alpha as well. But I kind of, when I was rendering it in Karma, connecting the alpha value to the material was giving me odd issues. So what we'll do is we'll generate an alpha value at material level itself. You know, we'll modify the opacity using, we can use like the normalized age that we have here. So we have the new age attribute. Yeah, there you go. So you have the new age. So we'll just use that. And here we can use the curve view. Okay, so either ways will be fine. Now, one more thing I want to do with this is, let's say we also want to control the thickness of it. So I'll come up here and I'll turn this off and come into miscellaneous and turn on shade open curves. And then I can take a float. So take an attribute adjust float. And I can set this to width. And we can set this to always and remap attribute and do curve view. There you go. So make it like 0.005 or let's try 0.01 and then let's just take it like this. Yeah. So you get these thick lines and then it sort of tapers out towards the end. So if I look at it, you know, you get this. Now we also want to control the particle scale so that we know what our particle scale is. So just take a sphere and set this to primitive, because if you try to copy a polygon sphere over these many, it will slow down. A primitive has like 0 problems in the viewport. So just do a copy to points and take a float value here as well. So attributed just float. And p scale set always. We'll do remap attribute and set this to new age as well. And the sphere comes here and this goes in there. The sphere remains at a value of 1 so that we know exactly what our p scale will be. So we just take this and yeah, so the beginning will also be 0, then it scales up. So we'll get this. Let's just scale out a little bit. And we'll keep it big. So it kind of does this. Yeah. And then make it tiny. So about, yeah, I think that should be fine. So this will be our actual p scale. So if I check it with this, this is what we get. See. And then to make sure that we don't see the other side, we can just take our sweep. I'll give it a color. So I'll just make it black. I'll give it a slight peak, like a negative peak. So make it minus 0.005 and then we can just merge it together. So what you'll get is like that side, it doesn't show up, you know, see. So we'll get this. All right, so this is as far as the simulation is concerned. So now let's just render this as well. Okay, because why not? So let's set this up. So we'll just do like, I'll create a null for each one. So let's call this as out trails. And then we have, I don't need, this is just for show. So I can just bring this out. Let's call this out particles. And we'll do out geometry. Yeah. Okay. So let's just come up here and I'll create a LOP network. And we want to bring in, we'll do a SOP import. And let's call this as trails. So out trails, and then this will be particles and this will be geometry. So this is particles and yeah. So if we merge these together, I'll just set this up. So material, I'll make it like no specularity. The background is dark. So if we merge these three, we get the same result over here. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now let's just set this up. So I'll just take, we don't need any lighting because we're just going to use like an emission shader. So we can just take this intensity and make it 0. I just want to render the color of this. So I'll just come into the Karma tab and turn on like render light geometry. Okay, then let's take a material library and an assign material. Let's set this over to Solaris. Yeah, so we'll have like, not that, but we'll have this. Yeah, okay. So material library, assign material. So we need 3 materials. So let's just take a standard surface. So we'll have material like standard. So we'll call this curves and call this particles. So the geometry is the simplest. I'm just going to take the base and the specular to 0. Like that's it. Okay, so we don't need to do anything over there. So create like 3 materials here. And we have the trails and the particles and the geometry, and we have curves and geometry and particles. Okay, so if I render this, we'll take a Karma node. Let's also create a camera. So new camera. Yeah, that should be good. And Karma, set this to XPU. And let's set this to like 960. Okay. And let's hit Karma. And we won't see anything because it's the dome light is at 0. If I get the dome light to 1, I should see something. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that is unexpected. Hold on a second, let's just stop this. Why are the particles that big? They shouldn't be that big. This is weird. Let's make it 0.01. Okay, I don't know why the particles were that big. But yeah, this is fine. Okay, so now let's just start setting this up. So I'm going to get the dome light back to 0. And just come in here to the material editor. And we'll take the particles and just come and make the specular and base color 0, and the emission goes to 1, and you'll see the particles. And now I just want to bring in the color. Okay, so we can just come to material X and geometric, and you'll get material X geometry color, and set this to color and connect it to emission, and there you go. Okay, now if you don't want to do that and you want to have like color control over here, I can take material X geometry property value, and we can just type in new age. I can take a ramp node. So we'll take a material X color ramp, and I can just plug that into emission. Yeah, so now the advantage is that I can actually just, color it any which way I want to. So let's say we do this. Yeah, so when we start off, see it's like pink, and then it'll start to change into blue. So you can make like, those adjustments. See, Okay, so what we can also do is, the reason for this is because the opacity value is a color. Okay, generally I would sort of assume that the opacity would be a float value, but it's not. It's a color value. So what we can do is I can duplicate this, and we want the start and end. Like, let's keep this to black, and then it will go to white, and then in the end it will go back to black, and that goes into the opacity. So it will sort of fade in and then fade out. Yeah, okay, so this is fine. Let's just keep this here. Okay, so this is good. And now we need to do the same thing with our curves. So the curves will also go like 0 in both and 1 in emission, and there you go. And then let's duplicate this. We'll do Control C, Control V, except I want the property to be curve U. And if everything is right, it will do what we needed to do. So there you go. So what I can do is, we want this to be like blue, and then it goes off into like pink or something. Yeah, see, so this is nice. And then I can just plug this into opacity, and that's pretty much it. Like, this is it, you know, like you don't need, yeah, without the camera it will look a little better because it's not like it's trying to show it at full resolution, but there you go. See, so this is fine. If you want, you can make it like semi-transparent or something like that. See, so this is okay. And if we look at it from the camera standpoint, then we can also give it, let's do one thing. I just want to do one thing, which is I'll take the camera and I will tilt it a bit. So let's just take this and kind of like just spin it a little. So if I come into camera view, yeah, it'll be like that. Okay. Yeah. And then let's just give it like a little bit of depth of field. So I can just take this and give it like some depth of field. Yeah, so there you go. Like, we can try something which I didn't think of before, but if I come into the material library, if I come to the geometry and just get the specular to 1, we might get like, yeah, see, so you get like a little bit of reflections on the whole thing, which looks nice. Can I move this? Yeah, let's take a transform here. I'll move it slightly down. Yeah, so what you get is you get like reflections of the particle trails, which looks fancy, you know. Like if I zoom in a bit, you can actually do a shift click to focus on something. Like if I select the camera and I can do a shift click somewhere, there you go. See, so you can focus on that particular area, or I can focus here. Now I think the far side is better. Yeah, so there you go. So you can do, you know, this, which looks nice. Yeah, too bad, like you don't have something like Octane where you can actually add like glow and stuff, so it looks better. But yeah, you can do that in post, so that's fine. All right, so that's pretty much it. So this is how you can do that. I mean, it looks vaguely like that effect. That one is much more, like it has more particles and more finer lines and stuff. But yeah, this is how you can do something similar to that effect. Okay, so I hope this was useful, and see you in the next video.